Julian, who is one of the founders of Golem project and the Octant. And yeah, why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself and what brings you to Zuitzerland?
Well, I think you said the most important part. I'm with Golem and focusing on Octant project mostly at the moment. And well, I came here because Zuitzerland or like Zui events in general are very inspiring and great place to be with high context people.
Yeah, makes sense. And yeah, tell us more about the Octant V2 specifically, like what excites you about it and how much has Octant itself like funded so far?
So Octant V2 is basically extension of Octant V1. So the things we are doing right now since August 2023, so almost 2 years. During those 2 years, we funded dozens of projects, like with a total of almost 2,000 ETH. That comes from the staking of ETH that is held by Golem Foundation. So you can say that Octant is a machine to fund things. At the moment, this is like a machine used by Golem Foundation only. And V2 is to make it a protocol that could be used by any organization to fund things within their ecosystem and also to fund broader Ethereum ecosystem. So this is basically the goal of Octant V2.
Cool. Yeah, what I personally love the most about the Octant is the first fully sustainable public goods funding mechanism. Like, doesn't depend on you going out there and begging other organizations to donate money to the matching wall and stuff like that.
At least on the individual level. Of course, on the level of the whole system, there has to be someone who will come with this capital, with this yield generating strategy, and will be ready to stream that yield Octant way. But I think there are like good reasons to do that for many organizations.
Right, but the matching from the Octant itself, that's what I mean.
Of course, but then if you want to grow that, like the matching needs also to grow from the capital from other organizations. So basically, at the end of the day, foundation has only so many ETH. So if we want to fund more things, if we want to Octant to be more relevant, we need other organizations to join. And then, of course, like a majority of the funds goes to their things. But like some of it, depending on how much they want to contribute, can go to fund broader Ethereum ecosystem, broader Web3 ecosystem, or pretty much anything in the future.
Right, cool. And yeah, any other like alternatives to VC funding, basically, that you see most promising in Web3 currently?
As for how much we experimented with different models in Web3, I'm surprised that we are still struggling to find the correct model. At the same time, I think that at the end of the day, this is a failure of connecting our great ideas in DeFi with working ideas in governance. And I think that at the moment we are close to the tipping point within our ecosystem where we might finally start figuring out how to do governance. Then if we are able to do that, perhaps we will open the way to like a more intelligent funding of things through community decisions. Also like a AI supported community decisions. I think in things like we are talking about here, deep funding, deep government. This is, I think, like a quite promising direction. And also, I think that VC funding specifically, in many cases, is not really well. Is not really aligned with the values of the open space. And this is not to say that I think like a profit is bad or markets are bad. I think like markets are great, and of course people are doing things for profit. Yet very often you want to be more open than is needed by the like a VC investor.
Do you think we should bring back the ICOs, and do you blame the regulation that there are not that there weren't many successful like crowd funds since the 2017?
This is, of course, a tricky question because we did our own token sale in 2016. So we did that before it was kind of fashionable. And in fact, we partially thought about that as a way of like funding the commons. So funding the thing that cannot be built from VC funding or like a private funding because of the open source nature and the decentralized principles. You could do things like Golem, we tried to do back then in a more centralized way, and then you could exploit some like advantages that would benefit like a VC investor, for example. But if you want to do that like a fully permissionless, building a business model around that would be difficult. So on the one hand, I still think this might be an interesting way, like create a token and like sell it and fun things, and people are still doing that. On the other hand, I'm pretty sure that as an industry, we don't want to repeat like everything that was around like ICO mania in 2017.
Yeah.
So
at least making the funds rage quittable, so people who invest can like take their money back or replace the core team.
There are of course a lot of like mechanics that we can experiment now, which were not there, or maybe were, but were not used. That make it much more feasible. I'm for sure fan of tokenizing things and building tokenomics. But also, I think that like building things that really work is really hard.
Yeah, definitely. And then to get more specific, what's your best hypothesis for funding permanent hubs for like Zuitzerland or like Zuzalu or other network states?
I think there are a number of ways to go. I think that the two most interesting observation you can make is that first you have externalities generated by people who are in the hub for the other people who are in the hub. And you can try to build some kind of reputation around that, and ultimately trying to convert that into some kind of a value that later on could be used for taxation system to keep that to keep it running. The other obvious way is, of course, the one that is like heavily explored here at the moment, I believe, with just like a real estates and like a representing the hub as something like a very real and giving like a very real thing, which is accommodation basically, and building some kind of economy around that. That may be especially compelling to potential participants if there is like a rich external uncle who pays part of the cost of the accommodation.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of these could be building like sort of a resort model where like you build this place and it can be used for hosting events, but also off season can be used for like hosting whatever else to like make it sustainable.
Of course. But then if you want to make it permanent, you want permanent creation of people who are there to keep this, San Francisco effect alive all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And finally, what kind of impact do you hope that Zuitzerland can have?
I see pop-up cities we are experiencing right now as mostly first creative space. So, from my point of view, they don't need to be permanent because I'm not in a position in my life to permanently move to a hub, or at least I haven't heard yet about the hub idea that would make me to move permanently. So I think this is like a value proposition mostly for as a permanent thing for people who are like more or less nomadic at the moment, or are experiencing any type of like barriers wherever they live. At the same time, for me, it's like a great creative space. Like if you come here for some time, just to meet like high context individuals, share ideas, and learn.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the most important part of it.
Yeah, very high density of smart people. Like I would say, more than usual events.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Julian, for joining for this interview, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you.